Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of UAE School Leaders with your host, Mohsin. Please make sure you subscribe and show your support. In today's episode, we have Dr. Bowen and Miss Anne-Marie. We will be discussing online safety during distance learning. How can schools protect students during this online learning period? What support can schools provide to parents in order to make sure their child is protected? What can schools do to reduce screen time? And any tips we can share to help protect children online. So being safe online means individuals are protecting themselves and others from online harms and risks, which may jeopardize their personal information, lead to unsafe communications, or even affect their mental health and well-being. So let me start by asking Dr. Bowen, what is online safety and how can schools protect students during this online learning period?
So online safety, there's a responsibility that lies on the part of the school as well as on the part of the home. The school is responsible for making sure that any programs that they use, so any type of educational software, email, etc., is secure. And there's quite a bit that goes into that, especially when it's cloud-based platforms. Many times people forget to ask those questions when they're working with companies, but it's extremely important to ensure that students' data is secure and safe and not being accessed or hacked into by others. In terms of the transition from the school to the home, the school, I feel, is also responsible for providing parents with up-to-date information as well as some training on understanding how to manage a virtual atmosphere at home and how to monitor their children. In terms of in-home, with having that knowledge provided from the school, and certainly I'm a parent myself, so any research that we do on our own to ensure that what's being done at home has safeguards as well. Most devices, most companies have parental controls for whether it be your computer, iPad, what have you. And so parents need to monitor those devices. They need to know their children's passwords. They also need to put those parental controls on those devices that their kids are using.
So we have to, it's statutory duty to safeguard children, and we have to teach children safeguarding through the curriculum. And we have something in particular that came out again last year about teaching online safety in schools. So that's guidance we've got. So schools have to teach them. We call it the 3 C's, about contact, content, and conduct online. So how they do all of that to reduce harm, but also to reduce the fact that we know people can pose a risk to children online, including their peers. So we're quite clear around teaching them around exploring, navigating the internet safely, how you report concerns, be mindful of fake news, be mindful of, the whole thing at the moment we expose to disturbing materials online and how it impacts on the well-being of children. And also definitely complementing what Dr. Kenneth just said about involving parents. So, parents are paying the bills. They should take ownership and responsibility for the supervision of their children online in their homes. So during COVID, clearly, there's more children being in homes with their families, and the parents have to take that ownership based on, removing the device at time. But I know the schools have kind of instructed families of timetables of online working, Zoom meetings, etc., with teachers. And, parents should be supervising that as well as removing the phone during lesson time, like you would at school. And also, I think all families, including young people, going back to this question, especially during COVID, need to know how to report abuse, how to report something they've seen online, or someone's suggesting something or sending them inappropriate pictures, etc. Know about the safeguarding in schools. Who's the child protection officer or the safeguarding lead in the school that they should go to? And I've been quite clear for a while, especially during COVID, around availability and accessibility. So does the average person know who to talk to if they've got a worry or concern? So normally the name of that person is buried in a website, on the website in a policy tab on page 12 or 13. By amending your website and having this on your landing page, you're worried about something, need to talk about something you've seen or something that's happening to you, we're here to support you. So having a very proactive approach is really good as well. And we've got a model at the moment we're using where we know that people make mistakes. It's part of growing up. And because people make mistakes, we're here to support you when you make a mistake, and that might be something you said online or done online. And therefore we'll help you through that. So there's no telling off. There's no, you're in trouble and you silly person, how could you do that? Because we know at the moment, the well-being of young people is changed at the moment. The whole liking thing online, etc., and social media, they haven't got that at the moment. So they're doing riskier things online to get the attention. Young people need to know how to, contact those people, as well as parents being involved in their young people's social media platforms and understanding. Because sometimes, over the last 18 months, I appreciate that you're going to know more about the well-being of a young person sometimes by what they say on social media than what they're saying to us physically. So I think it's really important that parents know, the handles or the different kind of names that they are, and keeping an eye on them. And there's really good apps you can get where a parent can actually see and monitor what's going on their child's phone.
Great. Thank you so much. So Miss Anne, what support can schools provide to parents in order to make sure their child is protected at home?
Parents need to understand that the virtual world is a reality for young people. And a whole sentence doesn't make sense because it's a virtual reality. It's not reality. It's a hype, isn't it? It's a lot of things that are very fake on there. We know the self-esteem. We know all of the negative things, but there's lots of positive things that we know in online as well. So it's balancing it and ensuring, like you would let your child, teach them how to make a cup of tea or teach them how to butter toast using a knife. The same thing, you're teaching children skills on how to navigate the internet, and how they can report things, but also, question things, be curious about things. So getting involved is really important in those young, the social media platforms, but also what children are doing online, their coursework, the gaming, all of those things, the apps, and understanding what they mean in relation to the young person knowing, as your parent, I've got two daughters, and they know it's my responsibility to keep them safe, at home, online, wherever in the community. So they know as an adult, I'm taking ownership of that. I respect their privacy, and they know at any time I can go to them, and I know the passwords, and they know in front of them I will look at their phone. I might look at their Google search, I might look at their photographs, and they ask permission again if they want to get an app, and then we'll have a discussion about that, etc. They know my job as well, and they know that I'm quite protective, but they know the bigger picture would be it's just to support them in their well-being growing up. So limiting screen time, for example. Ensuring that they don't bring it in their bedrooms, so downstairs in a communal area, well dressed, okay, with a positive background, likewise with staff as well, same thing, the staff conduct remains the same. So it's educating families, parents, young people about their well-being and about the impact too much screen time has, and encouraging them to engage in their families and even reflect on themselves, because we know the hype online, the whole thing about, you don't look as beautiful as these people do, you haven't got the latest trainers, whatever it might be, and remove yourself from that from time. So parents having ownership, and on most phones now, you can limit your screen time. Mm-hmm. So parents getting more involved, knowing about those devices you can get, those apps you can get, the parental guidance, and ensuring there's loads of websites, again, that can help, schools to provide parents, like I know the National Online Safety website, there's Safer School apps, there's ChildNet, there's UK Internet Centre. They're all accessible on the internet internationally. And again, they translate in different languages. So parents need to be more understanding about what is really happening, the latest app. I won't mention any, but I know at the moment, a lot of young people are using sociable ones to have parties in their virtual world, and how other people can actually pose a risk to them. So it's educating them. And I know at the moment, schools are sending newsletters to parents to update them on things. So I've always suggested, and some of them are messages now on phones as well as paper, I've suggested that they put a link on there to something about online safety to remind parents about the latest, challenges they've been having, or they're using this app now, be mindful that it can pose a risk. So it's just reminding them on a weekly basis about their responsibilities, and checking out how their child's getting on. You know, there could be something going online that they are not telling, and, you know, they feel embarrassed about. So it's being that approachable person again in their well-being of a young person.
One thing I would say is just starting out with an analogy. We certainly know and understand about the school inspection process and how that takes place, and that it's important for schools to be inspected. So I would say that it would be good for parents to take that same concept and apply it to virtual world at home. So virtual inspections, if you will. And so I like when Miss Ann said that she will go in and check her kid's phone at any moment, or tablet, or what have you. And so that would be part of that process. So pop in at any moment, check it, go through everything, take a look at what they are using, and see, and have, like she said, have conversations. I think that's the most important thing, is to build a good relationship with your children so that they will feel comfortable talking with you about anything that takes place, whether it be online or in person. But having those conversations are key, because those are the things that will open the door and have your child feeling comfortable. One rule I have in my house is, unless you're getting dressed, which we know doesn't take more than 5 minutes, your door's open. My door's open. Everybody's door is open. There's no reason to have closed doors unless you have something to hide. So that may be something to think about as well, especially if it's a time when the children are on screen time or working virtually, that the door's open, so you can, be mindful to walk by, take a look in the room, see what's going on, maybe pop in, look over their shoulder, see what they're working on, and take a look at those apps, those websites, anything that they're visiting, and having those conversations with them about that is extremely important.
And so going back to what Dr. Kenneth just said, my children know that, and I promote it when I do my professional work again, is, they need to ask permission if they want an app. They need to inform me and then ask permission if they want to FaceTime their friends. So during COVID, clearly they wanted more FaceTime with their friends. And they know they have to, like what, again, Dr. Kenneth said, not in their bedrooms. Do I know the friend? How long is it going to be? So everything is limited, but in a way where they're still socializing.
All right. Thank you so much there, Ms. Ann. So Dr. Bowen, what can schools do to reduce screen time?
One thing is thinking about the assignments that are given. So maybe we use Google Classroom, for example, as a home base to deliver the information that kids need. So maybe they're logging into Google Classroom to see what their assignment is, but maybe their assignment has nothing to do with anything that's online. Maybe it's going outside and conducting an experiment of things of that nature. So schools can deliver assignments virtually that doesn't have to necessarily take place on a computer. I do feel like, especially here in the U.S., but we focused so much on testing that sometimes we've really gotten away from teaching kids how to live. So this in itself, this pandemic that's forced everyone to go virtually all of a sudden, in some ways is a blessing, because I think a lot more schools, or at least I know schools that I work with, I've told teachers to give kids more lessons about life, like have them go outside, do experiments with their friends, or something within the home with their family. So it's causing more family time, really taking things a step back to maybe the way life was when I grew up. I used to, when the whole concept of maker spaces first came out, I always joked and said my maker space was my dad's barn. So it's just a new term. It's not a new concept. We've always had stuff that, we would go in and build and create and do all types of things of that nature. And those are assignments that schools may give. The other thing, when thinking about apps and schools delivering information to parents, there are apps that can be installed on devices that will tell you how much time is spent on each individual app on that device. And so that is important for both schools and parents, so they can, when we get back to monitoring, maybe you went on and you see these various apps, but you notice a child has spent a lot of time on this app that you've never heard of. So now you need to research it. You need to talk to your child. You need to see what's going on. And so that's another way that schools can help, but also at home that can help as well.
Again, compliment what Dr. Kenneth said about real childhood and what it was like before the internet. The whole thing about going out, talking to people, drawing, playing board games, all those things, where you're having different kind of interactions, interviewing people, again, giving them kind of tasks that they have to go and interview somebody from World War II or, lived in certain eras, because a lot of people are comparing that, aren't they, to now. Having those, using the kind of now to young people to be quite creative in learning more about comparisons, for example, but reminding them again about the well-being and how draining the whole being online is, screen time. So even if there is, for example, a timetable from the school encouraging those breaks, drinking liquids, going out, getting some fresh air. Some children living, social housing in places where there's balconies or there is no garden. So we're mindful again that the pressure and stress it's bringing for the family, and how people can take things out on each other. So the more kind of we promote the well-being of a young person, and even telling them how it's impacting on them. If they're playing too much games, for example, the gaming, when they lose, they get angry. That can actually, start an impact on their mood. So it's really important that parents are supervising. I don't mean 24/7, sit down watching them, but be mindful of how their children are today. They're not responding, they've gone quiet. What's happening there? Are they okay? We know with hormones, we know with young children from early years. So we're thinking of the spectrum from up to 18 years old. And we have to remember the 16 to 18-year-olds are still vulnerable to that. They're in a new independent world where they want to keep up with each other, fear of missing out, all those sort of things, fashion. The hype that goes on online, and the excitement it brings when you have to kind of, you have to compete more at the moment online for young people because everyone's online. So they want to be liked and noticed, and what are they doing different, So we know that's going on. And again, I think it's clearly about parents or caregivers or even older siblings, people who know about things, looking after and understanding how it's impacted on a family. If there's been some cases of young people being addicted to screen time, the addiction of gaming or whatever it might be, which they can't help. So we need to support them in separating that, the attachment they're having with certain devices or certain things. And again, if children get agitated by a certain way because they're not on there, the parents need to wake up to that and think, this is getting dangerous now. My child it's affecting their mood when they're not online. So you need to explore that further, maybe speak to the school again to get advice on that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much there, Miss Anne. So leading on to the final question, Miss Anne, with this digital era that we're in, what tips do you have for schools and parents in helping them protect children online?
Okay, so we have to work in partnership, with the young person in the middle and families, schools and communities together. Okay, because with that approach, we know that children do after school activities, whether it's the scouts, the sports, the arts, whatever, they're in school 5 days a week, ordinarily times, and they're at home. So we have to work in partnership, all get involved in teaching, safeguarding in relation to safety online. Be mindful of the mood swings, be, looking out for changes in children's behaviour. So we have to educate ourselves, learn about things, sign up to those websites. And again, I can send some over for you after for people viewing it today who want to know more about those websites. The good thing about the websites, they're updated regularly when there is a new crisis or challenge. Speak to the school. Schools have an ownership, responsibility to teach safeguarding. There will be a child protection officer in schools who knows all about the online communities and friendships, etc. Hence with contextual safeguarding as well, harm outside the family home. So we have to have these conversations and let the children know as well. They need to know that they're still young, they're children, they've got rights, but we've got a duty of care as adults, as parents, as teachers, professionals. to safeguard and support them. And that's what we're doing when we're getting involved in them, ensuring that they're in an open place. You take the controls back about how they can actually access their phones, their tablets, etc. Be mindful of the watches as well. So in answering the question and summarising, partnership working, signing up to those websites, having those conversations, taking note of your child when you see them, in their interactions, to be mindful of any changes, they've gone quiet or they're angry or, they're sending lots of messages, all of those things.
I think it all starts with the leadership within the school. So it's highly important that the leaders within the school model for the teachers what should take place. So any platform that we use or I work with schools on using, I model that from a leadership standpoint by working with teachers and staff. So when you think about a teacher teaching virtually to their students, we lead professional development the same way in those sessions. And so professional development is led using that concept. So as a leader, I model for the teachers how they should monitor and lead their classrooms virtually. In return, that flows down to the teachers and staff working with the students, as well as with the parents, modeling for them what can take place. Going back to a virtual inspection or audit, schools should do a virtual audit of what programs are being used, because some teachers can go out and access some free material, which is great, but schools need to know what is being used in each classroom. Double check the safety guards and protocols for the companies that are issuing that software, and ensure that both parents and students are able to assess the software. That's extremely important. And then teaching the parents about the software and how they may access. And then as Ms. Anne Marie said, going back to partnership, the relationships between school and home. That is key, because now more than ever, it truly is a partnership, and everyone has to work together to ensure that our students are safe and that they're learning and growing and achieving all at the same time.
Governance in the school. So you spoke about leaders, we're speaking about governance and the proprietors and strategic safeguarding at the top. I had a few calls last week, governors saying, what's my responsibility now during COVID? Have you got the same duties? And the answer is yes. But are you aware of what it looks like at the moment in relation to how your staff, how your school operationally are kind of, navigating the virtual world safely for children, for the teacher to the child, virtual world, etc. So governance, again, being in part of the leadership, again, what Dr. Kenneth was saying, because they have got responsibility. And I know we've also got safeguarding governors who are kind of strategic as well in ensuring that things are done effectively to not weaken safeguarding in that environment.
All right. Thank you so much to our lovely guests for joining me today. It has been an absolute pleasure. Please make sure you share this video, like and subscribe. And until next time, goodbye.